So hi everybody, I'm hanging out at Ettin Games in Humble, Texas, which is just outside of Houston, with Maurice. And Maurice ran Dungeon World for me at a con recently, and now he's nice enough to let me pick his brain about it. So how did you discover Dungeon World? I mean, one of the things I was at the con to do was try new games. How did you come to be a person who runs Dungeon World at cons for weirdos like me?
Well, I have a lot of friends that are weirdos like you.
Oh, okay, good.
So I was actually here at Ettin, and we were doing just a day with my usual group, trying new stuff. We like to try new RPG systems too, and a buddy of mine picked this up, and we had the most bizarre and hilarious game we've ever played. And so I was like, I think I'll try it out. I'll grab the book, and I read through it, and it's extremely easy to run. And it works to my strengths, which are making stuff up out of the blue. So, it was very nice. We ran 2 or 3 other games with it in that storyline, and then I started running, and I decided this year at MagCon I just wanted to run something just for fun. And it was fun.
Oh, it was a blast. One thing that really sort of knocked me out, because I played with so many DMs that have really heavy scripts, and I'm one of those DMs who tends to have a lot of script and a lot of notes, was we were not but 30 seconds in, and you said, a portal opens, and Kevin, what do you see through the portal? And I'm like, oh, this is that kind of game. And you did that quite a lot throughout the game you were having. So do you plan anything in advance, or do you even improv when you ask players for input?
Typically I do improv just about everything. When it comes to like the con game, I had a very bare bones kind of idea of what I was going to run. And it was just basically, okay, there's a portal, there's something weird behind the portal,
right,
and let them figure out what it is. And it turned out to be 2 completely different things on the 2 days that we ran it, which is a lot of fun.
That's neat. That's super neat. I know I was playing a paladin, and I was poring over all the options, and in Dungeon World, when you pick your class and everything, you get a pre-printed sheet like so, folks, and all your stats are already rolled. You just have to assign them to the slots. All the mods, everything. One of the other things that's kind of gonzo crazy cool about this is I was a paladin, so I rolled D10 for damage, and it doesn't matter if I'm using a sword, a chair leg, or a rubber chicken. As long as I'm a paladin, I roll D10 for damage. I thought that was kind of an interesting wrinkle to the game. But I was looking on the back, and on the back for Paladin, it had this thing where you could be on a quest. And I was playing this really ridiculous, pompous ass, but I noticed, ooh, quest, ooh. So I threw that at you, and you were able to weave that in quite a lot. That was a lot of fun. And Dungeon World lends itself to that, it seems like. Like there's a lot of room for player input in the game.
That is the thing that I think that I enjoy the most out of it, is that it's a game that where the story itself is developed by everybody at the table. It's not just the person running the game. Yeah, there's somebody directing it, but it's really more of a director kind of thing. You're saying, okay, here's the scene, I'll set up the scene. All right, what do? You guys know what your motivations are. When you set up your characters here at the table, you have bonds that you can do with the other characters to say, oh, this is how our characters interact, and we've got something, this MacGuffin we've got to get, or we've got this thing, we've got this quest we're on. That's the great thing about the Paladin, is that you get all sorts of cool.
Oh yeah, there were all sorts of plot hooks built into the Paladin. They were just boxes waiting for me to check off that just had giant neon lights around them that in some flowery script said plot hook here,
Yes.
And I latched right onto that because I love that stuff. That was super cool. So 2d6 system, modified by whatever your stat is. And the other thing I found really neat is you fail upward.
Yes.
Every 6 or less, you roll 2d6, add your appropriate stat, well, your stat mod, but and if you roll a 6 or less, you fail, but you immediately get XP.
Yes.
I know at the climax of the story, I had this huge, dripping, flavor text, giant dramatic thing my character was going to do, and I rolled the dice as snake eyes, and I get an XP, and I get beaten up by the bad guy, and you fail upward, which is, somebody at the table said that, and I really latch onto that as, that's what it is to play an Apocalypse World game, including Dungeon World. You fail upward. You're either doing really well, or you're getting lots of XP.
Yes. Either way, you're having a lot of fun with it.
It is. This is the most fun I've ever had failing die rolls. Right? And I've played a bunch of different systems that track how you do in die rolls, and this is just so super slick and clean.
Yes.
And a lot of fun. If you were going to tell somebody to run Dungeon World, do they need anything other than this?
No, actually, because the worksheets that we have here are actually in the book itself.
Okay.
And so you can actually run off the worksheets if you want. And they, if you get the PDF, like on a drive-through or something like that, they give you the PDFs of all of these.
Right.
And there's a huge community that has
I
come up
noticed.
with all sorts of extra, these are the basic fantasy things, but there's one, we used one in the game you were in, I believe, called the Immolator.
Yes, yes.
Which just sets everything on fire.
Yeah, we had just this crazy gonzo pyromaniac wizard, Tim the Enchanter kind of guy.
Right.
I noticed, I did a little web research before I came over here to meet you, and I noticed that there is just a huge number of extra playable character classes out there. And they call them playbooks in the games that use Apocalypse World as their core engine. And there are just, oh my goodness, my eyes just were drooling at all the character classes and all the crazy stunts people have put on them.
Oh yeah.
So, any tips you would give somebody who was going to run this?
Yes. Although Dungeon World looks like it would be a traditional high fantasy, something similar to the very popular D20 role-playing game, it's really a very different kind of game. You can't really approach it from the same way. Like when I used to play Pathfinder, I would have a whole script of everything that was going to happen, a point A, point B, point C. These are the NPCs, these are what they're going to say. You have to know all of that ahead of time. And in this game, it actively discourages that.
Oh, neat.
So it actively discourages you from doing anything really deep. Now you do get a little, the GM gets a playbook as well. But it's very high level. Basically, who's a big bad you want them to encounter? What's an area that it's going to be in? And one of the things that the Dungeon World book talks about several times is draw maps but leave blanks.
Right.
So I would draw it figuratively or literally. We actually had one we were doing out in Crayon one time, a map, and say, okay, well, you guys are starting here. You want to get to this city here. What's in between? And they get to fill out the atlas of everything and all the things that they encountered. And it's wonderful because you can build sessions off of it. They might say, oh, well, there's a series of caverns up here, but we don't want to hit that right now. We'll come back to that. We've done things like that where we've hit up different sections that would come up in a previous session, and we would come back to that and make a story.
So it sounds like this game empowers the players to do their own foreshadowing sometimes.
Exactly, and it encourages them to do so. And some of the most hilarious and interesting story hooks that I've come up with, that I've come across, have been ones I didn't come up with. They're the ones that I just gave a real bare bones kind of, hey, what's behind that portal? And one of my players is like, this is the most bizarre and crazy thing that I've ever seen, but they came up with it on spot.
That's super neat. So folks, if you're out at a con anytime, you run across Dungeon World, check it out. I love playing it. If you see Maurice sitting behind a screen, then you pull up an empty chair and you get in that game because this guy's a ton of fun to play with. All right. Thank you very much for talking to me about Dungeon World.
Absolutely.
Everybody, we'll be back soon. You stay tuned. Bye-bye.